Do you have a desire to expand your business this year, but you're stuck because you don't want to come across as salesy or being too pushy when it comes to promoting your service and product? In today's episode, I'm talking about a thing that I've heard nobody talking about, and it's not getting the right script for sales, and it's not getting the right tone of voice or overcoming objections. It's understanding the fundamental principles of conversations, in which all conversations comes down to asking or giving thanks, and how I found a small passage in the Bible saying making money is actually a very small matter. So if you believe what you're doing is really great, but you're stuck because you're not able to promote and sell your products, watch this episode and be amazed of a transformed person you'll be by the end of the episode. Let's get into it. So listen, some of us are stuck. We wanted to build our business, we want to expand it so that we can take the dream vacation, live the lifestyle that we want, have time for our kids, etc., etc. However, somewhere along the way, the notion of asking for things has been a crippling effect in our business. Like, we don't want to become salesy, we don't want to sound pushy, and we watch all these videos on Instagram thinking that these gurus have it all. But I heard nobody talk about this principle and also how biblically it matches with making money. So I'm going to unravel that for you right now. So think of this as two segments. The first segment is talking about the actual principles of conversation, how each conversation, when you think about it, it just lands on either asking for something or giving thanks to something or somebody. And then the second component will dive into how making money and this principle of conversation is going to play and how it transforms your identity. So let's start with this first. Who do you know in your circle that's working their 9 to 5, but they utterly hate their job because either one or both of these are not fulfilled, in that they are unable to ask for things, or when they are asked of doing some things, like it's a ridiculous ask, or the other hand, like they are not appreciated for the work and they have no place to appreciate the people in their work. It turns out when one or both of these segments of conversation of asking for things or appreciating is stuck or clogged, that we as a person, we deteriorate. So why am I saying this? We as humans, we're relational beings. Even God made us to be relational because God himself is relational. And matter of fact, that was the reason why I left my teaching career, because I felt unappreciated by the system, by the administration, as well as I couldn't appreciate because of fear of getting canceled or request of things that I thought in my personal life was okay to ask. And to add to this, this is the third episode I'm recording this because I was drawing in the first two. But what I've drawn was I've took the Chinese pictorial meaning of Ren, which is REN, which stands for a person. There are numerous meanings behind that symbol, but the one that I wanted to focus was that a person is to be with another, to be able to be harmonious as well as being alive as a person. They need another person to be alive. And so when I was actually focusing on conversations, majority of us, wherever we are in our journey, if one or the two areas or both areas have been neglected of being able to ask or be appreciated in both ways, both directions, we actually become less of a person. So for example, let's take the statement, I'm blank. I feel blank, and we'll insert all the feelings that you're feeling right now. I feel anxious. I feel frustrated. I feel upset, right? What I've come to realize about conversations is that when you are feeling these things, as a person, you're not supposed to carry them by yourself. You're actually supposed to translate that into a thanks, into an ask, or into a thanks, into a request, or into a appreciation, and be able to give it to the person that can work with you, whether if it's your spouse or your colleague or your manager, right? It's just that as we went along with life, nobody has really taught us how to change the emotions that we're feeling into asking for things or appreciating things. And because that has not happened, you struggle with holding on to emotional baggages. And yes, coming up with questions to ask, as well as coming up with phrases to appreciate or ask for appreciation, is definitely a skill that you will learn. Even I myself, I'm still learning it as I'm journeying through life. So that in itself is the first segment, basically understanding what principles of conversation means, and that majority of us are stuck feeling these emotions, just carrying it, but not knowing how to decipher it, change it into a asking, requesting, or into a thanks, appreciating. Now let's talk about the second part. By understanding the first part, we're able to understand that making money is actually supposed to be simple. So I am going to tell a story from the scriptures, and it doesn't mean like you have to be a believer here, and I'm not trying to force anyone to believe, but it's a story. It's a story about a master going away to become a king somewhere. The master is giving money to the servants so that the servants can make more money from that. And by the time he comes back, he sort of checks on them. And that's the gist of the story, where I mentioned that making money was a very small matter. So I'm going to pull up the passage here real quick, and then I'll read it to you, and then I'll explain what that means. Again, doesn't mean you have to believe in the Bible or believe in God, but I'm saying there's something that I noted that I want you to hear. Passage comes from Luke 19:11-27, the parable of 10 minas. I won't read the whole thing. I'm going to read the components that's important. So verse 11, verse 12, he said, therefore, a nobleman went into a far country to receive himself a kingdom and then return. Calling 10 of his servants, he gave them 10 minas. And minas, by the way, is their currency back in the time. And said to them, engage in business until I come. But his citizens hated him. What happens afterwards? In verse 15, when he returned, having received the kingdom, he ordered these servants to whom he had given the money to be called to him, that he might know what they had gained by doing business. Verse 16, the first came to him, saying, Lord, your mina has made 10 minas more. And he said to him, well done, good servant. Because you have been faithful in a very little, you shall have authority over 10 cities. It's like, whoa, hold on. This guy, this master left to go to another country, gave 10 servants 10 minas, so like 1 mina each. And the goal wasn't to make 10 minas. The goal was just to make more minas. And by the time he returned and checked up on him, the first servant just happened to have 10 minas. Okay? I'm going to read to you another version, NIV, which said it was a very small matter. NIV version says, NIV 17 says, well done, my good servants, his master replied, because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. So when I read this, I was like, hold up. Like, are you saying making money was a very small matter? It's like, for me, living this immigrant life as a Canadian Korean, like that was hard. Like I did the thing, got the school degrees, I went through all of that. I got the job, got the mortgage, got the family, and I'm sweating out here, right? I'm putting my hours in, right? It's not a very small matter. But why did this master tell his servant, good job? It was a very small matter, and in fact, gave him 10 cities to look over. It's like, what? You're given 10 cities to govern because you know how to make more money? It's like, what's the secret here that makes it simple, as he says, as a very small matter? So that was the mind and the conversation that I was having with myself. And so naturally, I thought about, right, if it's a biblical principle, that means I can apply it today in my day and age, right? So I said to myself, if I have $1 and I wanted to make $10, what do I have to do? So 4 scenarios came up. The first 2, it's disregarded, and I'll explain to you why. One of the first ones that I came up with is like a social experiment. It's like fun stuff, right? You grab $1, you walk around the shopping mall, and then somewhere along, you just ask a stranger, random stranger, just like, this is a social experiment. I have $1. Would you like to change it for $10? Some people will say no, but eventually some person along the mall will say, all right, cool, that's fine with me, and they'll do it. Now, the reason why I'm disregarding this is because as a way to earn money, it's not a sustainable way. It's just funny. It's a social experiment. But on the side note, like really, if this was your job and you're walking around the mall, you start with $100, like changing it all with another 10, you'll come up with $1,000. So yeah, maybe steal that idea. But yeah, that's the first reason. So that's the first method. The second method was actually disregarded because you would like not even touch the minas or the dollar, and then you would just go exchange your time for money. Like you would go work in a labor, like whatever that is, in exchange for time, in exchange for your hours, right? And the reason why I disregarded this one was because you weren't actually using the dollar to create more. All right, so the last two things that I came up with was what was blowing my brain about how it ties into the conversational principles. So watch this. And this is the most common one. Like we all thought of it, right? If you went to Bulk Barn, and Bulk Barn's a store that sells, like wholesale of candies and goodies, and I decided to buy $1 worth of candies, and I separate them into 10 different Ziploc bags. And I went over to my son's school, elementary school, and said to the kids, hey kids, you guys want extra candies? And majority of them do have a couple of dollars on them because they always have pizza days or cookie days. And so I can literally go over there and sell them a bag of candies for $2. And then by the end, I would have had to make $10 right there if I sold it to 5 different kids. Now, can I do that legally? Probably not, but the idea is there, right? The idea of buying something, creating something as a product, and you sell it. It's business. It's selling. It's business. Another way is like you buy something, a tool, and you go service it somewhere. Like you go fix a house, you go become a plumber, right? So it's a way of selling a business. So that way we're gonna consider it because it's utilizing that dollar to work and to make it for more money. Now the second part of the one that we're considering, it's actually the fourth part, the last part that we are considering, is this very fact of taking this dollar to learn something, not to buy anything to service or to buy to resell. It's not that, but to learn something. And then with that knowledge, you teach it to other people. It's an essence of teaching, essence of transferring wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So there's two components we are going to consider. Now you might be asking, okay, so you're saying biblical times they said making money is a very small matter. It's like that you're saying it's very simple and effortless. And now you're saying, okay, there are two ways you're saying it's sort of resounding the effortlessness, right? And I'm saying yes. And I'm gonna in the next couple minutes, I'm gonna tie it in to the principles of conversations, and you're gonna now think, oh my gosh, that's why for some people it makes easy for them because they just know how to do the selling. But listen carefully, right? So from here, my hypothesis was, okay, if there's selling and there is teaching, then it must correlate with asking for things and appreciating things. And before I tie the knots here, there's this phrase. As I was close to a decade teacher, high school teacher teaching comp sci mathematics, I have been so frustrated with this phrase. And some of you may know it. It's called, those who can do, those who can't teach. How many of you have heard that phrase before? It makes you feel, at least for the teachers or coaches, anyone that's transferring wisdom, knowledge, pastors as well, when you hear this, you always, or at least for me, I thought to myself, man, it really degrades my ability as a person who I know teaching education is such a noble thing to do because you're passing on to the next generation the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So I've been always crippled with this phrase, but as I was reading the Bible, I whispered God saying, it's like, say it this way. And I was like, what is this? It's like, those who can ask will sell, and those who can appreciate will teach. You got to write this down. Those who can ask will sell, and those who can appreciate will teach. So what does that mean? The more you ask, asking will lead to more selling, and appreciating will lead to more teaching. So let's take a pause here. Now, as we pause, I want you to do one thing. If you've, in the previous way of thinking, you disregarded teachers, educators, coaches, pastors because they're not doing the thing, because they're not extravagantly making money, you are in the wrong, because this is another principle of making money. And nobody has talked about it. It's the transferring of wisdom and knowledge and understanding, which is, I'm just saying it as teaching. So the reason why I'm pausing is you have to understand that when you know how to ask for things, because it's a principle of humanity, of relationships, because it either just exists in the two, then you won't be so bothered anymore to be sounding salesy or to be pushy as sales, because we fundamentally as humans, we're asking questions. Even God asked questions in throughout the Bible, right? Then the reason why I had such a hard time thinking about sales or asking for sales is because I didn't want to be bothering people. Where in fact, when you don't ask for things, you're actually limiting that interaction. Think about it. Asking itself is half the conversation, half the conversation. So if you're limiting yourself of asking for things or being asked, you're limiting a half of your side of relationships that's supposed to make you a human. And how about the appreciation part? Let's talk about that, right? If you have been in a stage of life where you just are so bitter and you're just so angry and upset that the last time you've appreciated was a very long time, you have to think to yourself, like, why is it that I am not appreciating? It's maybe because you haven't been able to, and it sort of like goes back and forth. Like you need to write down in a time where you've requested for something, but it wasn't fulfilled, therefore made you unappreciated. Hence, you feel more upset, right? So the cycle kind of continues on in the person's mind. And again, going back to the very top of this episode, I'm saying like, when a person is feeling these emotions, the whole point is not to hold it and to implode or explode. It's to be able to learn the phrases and the way to ask for things so that you can bring it to another person, like Ren, like I'm just using my fingers here for those that are just listening in the audios to draw the Chinese pictorial. It's like two things like leaning on against each other. So why am I saying all this in regards to sales and making it easy? Well, making money, as I said, it was a very small matter. It should come in the form of both asking for things as you're selling your product or service, and also in the form of teaching things. And I really don't say it lightly with the teaching aspect, because socially, as our culture in the North American may have degraded or have a lower point of teachers, this is actually not the case. If you know someone that's a teacher, coach, pastor, or someone that their job, even parents too, to share their knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and to transfer it to the next pupil, I want you to share this video, because it encourages them to know that what they're doing is not out of waste of time. And what they're doing is not because they're not able to do, just like what the quote said. But they are doing that because it's a fundamental principle of being a relational person in this society. You might say, okay, Yesong, but as a teacher, unless you're hired by the board or the college or universities, you still have to sell your programs. You still have to sell your coaching programs. And that is true. It's the art of asking. And we are living in a time where we have to do both things in order to be able to achieve financial success. Just look at social media. The reason why some people are so popular and they have a massive following is because they're giving out value of entertainment or information for free. And some people know how to translate that into offers and then make money from that. It's like, oh, so this whole teaching thing, translating of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge is definitely a thing, a way to make money. But all in all, why do it from a perspective of not being aligned? Because before you were thinking that I hate being salesy, I hate being pushy, and you just have to do it. Like, it doesn't align. People hear it from your tone of voice, people feel it in your presence, to now understanding, oh my gosh, this is a fundamental principle of a conversation, of being a human, of being a person that's relational. We ask for things and we appreciate. Same with God. God asked questions and he showed appreciation. So again, I want to take a moment to pause here because we've now established the conversation and the aspect of making money simple. Now, the last part I have to talk to you about is this very fact, and it continues in the passage here. It's talking about when there's 3 servants. One came back with 10, the second one came back with 5, and the last one came back with nothing because the servant hid it away. Like, they hid the manna and did nothing with it. And here's what the master replied. His master replied, I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. You knew that I'm a hard man, taking out what I did not put in, reaping what I did not sow. Why then didn't you put my money on deposit so that when I came back, I could have collected it with interest? That's verse 23. And then 24, he says, Then he said to those standing by, Take his mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10 minas. It's like 25, verse 25. Sir, they said he already has 10. 26. He replied, I'll tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given. But as for the one who has nothing, even what they will have will be taken away. It's like, whoa. So the reason why I'm bringing up this story last here as we end the episode is some of us resemble this person. Like, if this person got minas, and by the way, minas, when I looked it up, it said it's about 3 months worth of money. So imagine that you've gotten all of a sudden from your master 3 months worth of your work that you get. So think about how much you earn in a month and times by 3. And you did absolutely nothing, not even to the point you deposit it into a bank or somewhere to accumulate interest. Like, the master was saying, like, that's the minimal thing you should have done, but like, you didn't even do that. It's like, come on. So then this question comes up, and it's especially for the leaders here. If you're leading your business, if you're leading a group, if you're a teacher, coach, educator, pastor, think about this for a second. What has this servant not done in terms of asking or appreciating? Do you think he has done either of that? Do you think he has, taken the money to learn something, to teach it, or to buy some stuff and to go service and give it as a product? No. So this person, once receiving a minas to go and make more, they did neither of asking or appreciating, of selling or actually teaching. So because they haven't done either of those things, they have not earned more money. If they were to go even put it into a bank or somebody else for additional interest, they would have physically had to ask them, hey, I have this much money and I just need to make more of it. Can I just deposit it with you for interest, right? So question and asking had to have happened. But this passage shows us that when a person does neither of the things of asking or teaching, appreciating, that this person's minas will be taken away and it'll be given to the person who has more. So where are you in this stage of life? For me, I've actually held off like the financials to myself for the longest time because I did not trust anyone. I didn't trust the pension system of the education. I didn't trust the government to take care of it. I trusted myself. And God's broken me down from that. And now I'm really learning to let go of that so that it's starting to flow. But where are you in your season in terms of asking for things, being requested of things, and appreciating things or being appreciated by others? And that, I think, is a fundamental reflection that'll help you to gauge how you can change, how you can rephrase the askings so that you could start to have the areas flow. I'll leave you off with this example, right? And again, I'm talking to the leaders here. If you are, let's say, running a company with 5 employees or whatever you have if you take the time to ask your employee, hey, how are things going so far? Is there anything I can do to help you improve your experience here? And then you appreciate them. It's like, I really appreciate how hard you've been working for the last couple of months. Like, our results are showing. So that phrase right there, that sentence that you just mentioned, helps the individual get an unlock, because out of the 4 things of asking, both going in and out, as well as appreciating going in and out, you've done half of the work that fills them up as a person. You've asked them how they're doing, and you've also appreciated the effort that they've put in to your organization. And if they don't know how to reply and respond in terms of requesting for things or to show back appreciation, then you can, that's a time where you can educate them and teach them. These are the phrases that you can say to your managers or boss or colleagues to appreciate each other in the workplace. Then when they actually practice that, notice how the humanity side of things would literally kick in immediately, and they would feel a sense of relief. It's like, oh my goodness, I was looking for this for the longest time in the job. It's like, yes, this is paying my bills, but I've been so frustrated because it's just been, it feels gross to be here because I can't ask for things or I get asked too much of things. So fundamentally, I believe there has to be a shift, and that shift starts with understanding the principle of conversations, being relational, knowing that a person must need another person to say these things, to release it and to receive. And then lastly, I'm ending off with this understanding from the Bible here, from the scripture that I read, that making money, in fact, is a very small matter. And it's because of the fundamental principles of asking and appreciating that as a human, we are to do exactly that in order to make more money. Now, you might be on a journey thinking that, hey, this social media thing, or like trying to grow your social influence, is definitely the trend that I see coming up. And you've been struggling of trying to find your style that works for you. Like sharing your message that resonates with you the best, as well as resonating with the audience that you have. So I've done the hard work of organizing what's best style for you depending on what you're trying to achieve with your business or maybe with your personal brand. But that video you can watch right here. And lastly, I'll say this, it's such a beautiful journey that I'm on, that I'm so thankful to be on in terms of growing my business and just documenting the journey. And so if you find things that are resonating with me or disagreeing, like feel free to put it in the chat below, and then I'll love to talk about it. And by all means, I'm not an expert of everything. I'm still just learning and discovering things. From personal experience, I know that making money for a lot of entrepreneurs, even Christian entrepreneurs in the Korean immigrant church, struggle with this a lot. But my desire is that we now enter into a season where we're able to really teach effectively and fun, and also be able to give an offer that makes sense for both parties and be at a win-win. So if this journey resonates with you, I also have a newsletter that I almost send out daily, just talking about my thought processes and the tensions that I'm going through, even as a dad raising 2 young kids. As a bonus, I also have additional resources that you can click and download below in the comments below. As always, the world is full of choices. I just want to thank you for being here in this episode, and I'll see you on the next one.